Hello, this is Watch All About with another watch review, and in this review we're looking at one of the latest releases by Phoibos. I've reviewed a few Phoibos watches before. This is the Reef Master, so let's have a cheeky unboxing. Here we have in a box within the cardboard box. Nothing too crazy exciting, but it'll do the job nicely. And if we open up, we have spare rubber strap. Bunch of paperwork in here as well, which is good. Instruction manual, shipping warranty paperwork as well, so that's always good. And obviously the watch itself. So I'll just get this strap out and we'll be able to have a look at that as well. So there we have the case. Pretty secure. As you can see, it's pretty nice and tight and cozy in there, so it is kept well together during shipping, which is good. So I'll just move the box away now. Okay, so here we have Phoibos' Reef Master. Now it's a good turn away from homage watches for Phoibos, because they have done a number of watches basically heavily based on other brands such as Deep Blue, obviously Submariners as well. So I feel that this is their first proper foray into doing an individual unique design, which is a good start for them. It looks pretty good, pretty cool at first glance as well. So obviously that's a plus. So we'll go into it in closer detail. First of all, the price then. If you get it direct from Phoibos, it will be $229 currently. That equates to about £170. They do also have storage in Europe, so you can buy from their Europe factory, and the website of the European site is €205. That equates to about £180. So £10 more. However, you know, if you do live in Europe and you order it through Europe, that would be a better choice, because chances are, if you order it direct from them, you'll probably get some import taxes you have to pay. So it's a little bit safer and a better bet to go through Europe if you are from Europe. Okay, so got about a 7¼ inch wrist for reference. Let's talk about the specs. 42mm in diameter, so a really decent size for a dive watch, I'm sure you will agree. Height of 14mm as well, so you know, fairly not too crazy high, but it provides a bit of chunkiness to the watch. And then a lug-to-lug length of 48mm. So I personally think it fits really well. I think it looks pretty good on the wrist as well, gives lots of wrist presence as well. Weight-wise, it's 107 grams, so considering that's on the leather strap, that's, you know, fairly weighty as it comes. So it does feel decent on the wrist, feels good quality when you're wearing it. 22mm lug width, and that tapers down ever so slightly at the buckle. So again, I think that works nicely. Decent ratio, decent size for the size of the case. You get 2-year warranty, which is always good. We have a bezel which is 120 click, and the insert is ceramic, but we'll talk about that more in a little bit. The movement, Seiko NH35A, this one is coming in at plus 12.5 seconds a day, which is a little bit higher than I usually like to see. I like to see, you know, things within 10 seconds a day for mechanical watches. And I know that this Seiko NH35A is absolutely capable of, you know, within COSC specs within 5 seconds a day. So it's a bit of a bummer that this one isn't quite as regulated as much as it could be. But you know, it's not the end of the world, really. Okay, so that's all the specs discussed. One final spec. The loom used is Superluminova BGW9. So I find that the loom is fairly strong, actually. Pretty good, pretty quick to charge. Certainly not Seiko level, but not many affordable watches are. But it is pretty impressive for the price. Okay, so let's start off by discussing the dial. So the dial is in fact classed as a sandwich dial, because the hour markers are all on a ever so slightly lower level, and the loom pokes through. As you can see there, we can see they're cut out of this top layer of dial. That does mean that the date window sits reasonably low. I mean, I'll get the macro lens on later and we can see this in closer detail, but you can see the depth between the top of the dial and the actual date wheel itself. So that's one minus behind a sandwich dial. However, it does look nice. I think from a design point of view, it looks great. Apart from there would be two minor things that I personally probably would have made. I mean, I'm not a watch designer really, but my personal preference would be that the logo is probably a tiny bit too large. It's a nice logo. The octopus logo is really cool. However, for my taste, it's probably ever so slightly too large. And also these hour markers, which are not the numerals, I think they could be a little bit longer to match the height of the numerals. But again, obviously, that's just my personal preferences. In reality, the design is pretty nice and bold. The legibility is excellent. These hands are so, you can't really go wrong with hands shaped like this. You can't get much bolder. It's got a little blue base as well. So, it provides that floating kind of feel, yet making them extremely legible. Second hand also has a little loom pip on it as well. So the dial in itself is really well manufactured. We'll get the macro lens on, but it's pretty much flawless. And in fact, the entire watch in itself is really, really well constructed for the price. So moving on to the case then, we have, obviously as I mentioned before, first of all the bezel. Ceramic insert, all these markings are engraved out, filled with loom. They're all really neat and tidy as well. Be able to see it even better with the macro lens on later. It's 120 click. It is really nice and easy to use. However, I have found that a couple of times it's ever so slightly advanced without my knowledge. So that's probably just from taking off and on a coat or a jumper or something like that. However, for a dive watch, you don't really want it to easily knock like that. So that's just one thing. It would have been nicer if it was a little bit stiff, a little bit firmer. Saying that though, the mechanism behind the movement is really smooth and there's no backwards play at all. As you can see, I'm trying to turn it and it's really, really solid. So that is a plus. And just the colour, the nice bright blue, the ceramic insert, specs that you wouldn't necessarily imagine on a watch costing less than £200. So that is definitely a very good plus, despite these minor bits and bobs that could do with a little tiny tweak. Moving on to the discussing this grip on the bezel. As you can see, really nicely machined there, really accurate, really good to grip, really pleasant in the hand as well. It just provides that feeling of quality and chunkiness. Moving on to the case then. So we have primarily brushed apart from these polished corners on either side. No crown guards around the crown either. And then on the underside it's completely brushed. So these two polished shoulders provide a nice little flash of reflection. But there's not too much polished stuff on there that it will be very easy to mark. And if you look at it a little bit closer as well, just these edging between the two different types of finishing is really smart, really neat. So I have been impressed by the quality of finishing and manufacture of the case itself. Moving on to the crown, as you can see there, we have the octopus logo. Considering how detailed it is done to a really good level of quality as well, as you can see there. I mean, with the macro lens, we'll be able to look at it even closer, but from the naked eye, it is really, really smart, really nice. Great grip as well, really easy to use. So that's a good plus. So moving on to the case back, decent bit of engraving here for the octopus logo, various specifics surrounding the outside. I can't complain really. I mean, you can say, it could do with being a little bit deeper stamped, but for a price, you can't complain at all. It looks good, and it does the job nicely. Everything's brushed, so it's not going to scratch easily as such. So there we go. Moving on to the strap then. So it comes with two straps. First of all, the leather strap. I have been wearing it a fair amount and we are starting to get a tiny bit of wear on the long section. However, it is very comfortable. A little bit stiff to begin with, but as you can see, it's broken in nicely. The one thing I am disappointed with is the tang buckle is probably a little bit plain. It would have been nice if it was a bit more interesting, like the buckle found on the rubber strap. But it's not the end of the world. It just would have been nicer if it was a little bit more interesting. But saying that, the general quality of the strap is nice, big, thick, decent quality leather, so no complaints there. So just looking at the rubber strap, As you can see, it is very bendy, very supple, so it's comfortable on. Pretty standard design. I mean, I've seen these kind of straps over and over again, but that's not a problem. I quite like this design with the 2 channels either side and all of the holes. Very nice and breathable, especially when you're swimming or in the water. And as I said before, the tang buckle is pretty cool as well, with a nice big fat tongue and quite an interesting design. So there we go. So let's get the macro lens on and we'll have a look at it in even closer detail. Okay, so starting with the dial. So here's the logo. Nice bit of print work on that. Printing down here as well. And then looking at these hands. Big and bold white hands with a loomed centre and that blue base as well. And then here's the second hand with that running pip. So then looking at this sandwich aspect, you can see there the loom is on a lower level to the rest of the dial. Have a look at this numeral over here, number 9. And up here, number 12 as well. But as I mentioned before, it does mean that the date wheel does sit quite low. You can in fact see the 2 layers to the dial there. See the top level and then a centre level, and then we are introduced to the date wheel itself. But apart from that, that's the only negative really I can find with the dial. Everything else is really well put together, really well manufactured. Moving on to the case then. So let's start off. Oh, I forgot to mention the crystal is a sapphire crystal, double domed, so that's always a plus. Moving on to the bezel insert. Try and get it in focus. So here we have our markings. Nice and accurately cut out there, filled with loom. The ceramic bezel provides a really nice shiny kind of finish to it as well. So that does catch the light well, catches the eyes as well. It does make it look like a nice decent quality timepiece. Moving on to the side of the bezel, we have this decent, really nice toothed grip on the outside. And then just having a look at the lugs then. Have this variety of finishing. You can see there the edges between the 2 finishes are really nice and sharp, as you can see. So yeah, really nice pleasant surprise on the quality of finishing there. Moving on to the crown. Here's the Phoibos logo, as you can see, really, really accurately engraved considering how detailed and how small it is. That's a really impressive piece of manufacture there. Decent grip on the crown itself as well. So really nice and easy to use. Moving on to the case back. Here's the center octopus logo, so you can see neat, accurate, no complaints there. And finally moving on to the leather strap. Here's a stamp underneath. And looking at the top, nice soft grain on the top. Thick black stitching to match. Decent seal on the side as well. And just taking a look at the tang buckle. Although it's a bit boring, it is very neatly and nicely engraved there. Just a quick look at the rubber. Here's the finish of the rubber, nice and uniform, and the logo on the tang buckle of the rubber strap there as well. Okay, so I mean, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that it is a watch that packs a hell of a lot of punch for the price, for under £200. It's great that Phoibos are starting to go into their own unique designs as well. I think this is a valiant effort to begin with. A couple of minor design points that I personally would like to see, just the logo and the date window, but I appreciate with the date window being underneath the sandwich dial that may not be possible, but just two things that I wanted to raise and note as well. Apart from that, everything else is really splendid for the price. I mean, 170 or 180 pounds depending on where you're getting it from, you know, to get a 2-year warranty, Seiko NH35A movement, a ceramic insert, Superluminova, BGW9 loom as well. You know, all of the specs are there. The build quality behind it all is really splendid as well. It's pretty much flawless, to be honest. I've not noticed any issues whatsoever, even under the macro lens. So really impressed by it. They've done a great job. And if you like the look of it, then I would highly recommend it, because you will be getting an excellent watch. So this was the Phoibos Reef Master, and that's what it's all about. And please don't forget to subscribe, comment and like on my videos. Thank you very much. Bye bye.